Okay,
We're just preparing to live stream everybody.
and also record. I'm gonna start the recording.
Okay. All right. Great. Happy Thursday evening, everybody. We are live here
Yay.
on Facebook with our community members, our friends from NYCLU, and we've got a great agenda for y'all tonight. We're going to talk a little bit about who we are as Proyecto Faro. We're going to talk a little bit about who NYCLU is. We're going to go through some different ways to be able to share what your concerns are in a formal way, as well as in a little bit more informal way, just through conversation, but also surveys, just tools to help us think about how we can share some of the issues that we want to be able to talk about here in Rockland County, right? So just to introduce myself, my name is Maria Marasigan. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and sha. And I am the Director of Programs and Organizing with Proyecto Faro. And for those who don't know, Proyecto Faro means Project Lighthouse. And it is an immigrant-led organization effort allied with religious and secular communities and organizations to galvanize support and action among those in Rockland County who feel insecure due to their immigration status. We strive to create solidarity across boundaries of legal status, country of origin, and religious affiliation. So really trying to bring folks together across those different identities that folks carry. And our organization really runs on the power of community volunteers. And so everything within our programming is really based on the needs that are expressed by our community, but also they're the ones that make the choices to take action in terms of what we do regarding food distributions, offering free immigration clinics. We have a free store for different items that folks might need, jackets, furniture, baby clothes, shoes, any of those types of things. We are part of the Excluded Workers Fund Coalition. We also provide advocacy support if there's anything happening with your school that you want another person to just help you get through that. We can come and join you to help support some of those conversations. So I want to just take a moment to also introduce two of our other staff with Proyecto Faro. They're amazing. Please get to know their faces and their smiles. They're really here to give awesome support to everybody. So I'll start with Shirley Fabre.
Hi, everyone. My name is Shirley Fabre. I'm the community organizer for Proyecto Faro. And I'm happy to be here and look forward to being part of this program. Thank you.
And Ana Maeda.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ana Maeda, pronouns she, her, ella. I am the community representative for Proyecto Faro, and also I'm a Spanish speaker, so hola.
Also a mama in the East Ramapo School District. So she knows firsthand experience about some of the issues that we're talking about. And I want to just do a quick introduction to our special guests this evening. Jake Martinez, who is the Director of Youth Programs, Christian Singleton, who is our youth organizer, and Ray Shi, who is part of the Education Council, and they'll get a chance to do a deeper dive into who they are and what they do. But if folks can give a little bit of a wave so folks can see you. Awesome, thank you. So we're gonna go ahead and I'm gonna ask if Shirley, you can go ahead and share our screen. So we can let folks know about our community concern survey.
Yes, give me 1 second. I'm gonna bring that up.
Sure. So for folks who don't know, you know, every every school has its issues, right? Every job place has its issues. And it's really important to have a space to be able to communicate in order to have pathways to find solutions. So this survey is something that is going to be a tool for us to be able to share with the district, share with the state what's happening, and figuring out ways to change the current situation. So if you go to our Facebook page, you can just scroll through the About page, and then you'll find the link for this survey. Shirley's just going to show y'all where that is.
One second, I have- There we go, Proyecto Faro. And then if you're on the About, oh, sorry, can you hear me?
Mhm.
You're on the About page, you just scroll down here to the link tree, and then you could just click on the link tree, and it is the second to last one in English, and then you click on that and it'll come up.
Great, thank you. And we want folks to know that the survey is also in Spanish and Haitian Creole. And, you know, sometimes tech is a little challenging for us folks. I know it is for me. So you can also just call our phone number and we can help guide you through it and help you fill it out if you need that support. So basically it's for parents and students. Oops, Shirley.
Sorry. There it is. Did it come back up?
Yep, it's back up. So it's just parents and students of East Ramapo, your story is important. Proyecto Faro is collecting stories and concerns about issues being experienced in our schools. We will advocate that your concerns be addressed. And you do have the option to remain anonymous here. So it's up to you how much information you want to share with us. And so as you go through, you can see here that it asks for your school name. It asks for your grade or your age. And it also asks if we can call you for more information. And again, this is another optional piece. You can offer your phone number, your email, or if you feel safer, you know, using social media, you can also do that. And I just want to go through some of the issues that are here. And the ones that we've listed here are really based on things that we have received phone calls about. So whether it's transportation, registering for class, language barriers, attendance, remote learning, in-school learning, any forms of discrimination or bullying. If the curriculum, you have some suggestions around that, safety around COVID and overcrowding, building safety. You know, some of our schools have been closed due to some different issues such as mold and things like that. If you have special needs or anything around disability access and other options also. I think maybe that part got erased, and then we just have a space here for, you know, your top 3 issues if you want to share a little bit more deeply about what those details might be. And then any additional concerns you want to share with us. And we also want to encourage that this isn't a one-time fill out the survey and then we never talk to each other, right? We want to make sure that we're building that relationship. And when we have community events like this Zoom right now, that we try to really center the parents and the students on what times and days are most available for you. And then just you click next. And then that's basically it. You just press submit. So it's not a super long survey, but again, please feel free to call us so that we can have a more in-depth conversation with you if you'd like. And if you want to find out different ways to get involved, we've got some other organizations here. Like I said, NYCLU is our special guest tonight. We have Willie Trotman, who's here from the Spring Valley NAACP. And if you don't know about their young adult committee, that's available. We also have Mark Pessin, who was here, who's part of the Rockland Coalition to End the New Jim Crow, along with many others, and they have their education committee as well. And those are just 2 examples of ways to tap in. So we do hope that you'll do that with any of them or with us. And I do also want to say Wolf is still here, and there's another
called
I wouldn't miss it for the world. Thanks, Wolf. We actually went to high school together. Ramapo High School. Go Griffins! Yeah, so they've got a great program that at the end will give Wolf some time to also share another way for folks to tap in. Okay. So thanks everybody for taking a little bit of time to learn about Proyecto Faro and some of the things we're trying to do. And I'm going to shift over and hand it over to Jake Martinez to start off with our New York Civil Liberties Union presentation for tonight.
Thanks so much. I'm super excited. If I talk fast, it's just because I'm very excited that we're here. I see a lot of familiar faces. Hi, Willie. Hi, everyone. I'm super excited to see, folks that we've been in community with these last couple years. We're really excited to talk to you all about a very important law in New York State that, many people don't actually know about. It's called the Dignity for All Students Act. And so myself, along with two of my colleagues, are here to talk to you about that, as well as some other really important things that we think that you all should know. It's really important to have the information about this law, specifically speaking, for our students and their experiences in school. And so we're going to deep dive into this law and talk more about it, and also make space for questions. And hopefully you can leave this, this workshop with a better understanding of what this law means and how you can take action when you feel, you or children, or if you're a student, if your rights have been violated under this law. So I don't know if we can start the screen sharing. We're going to start with some quick introductions. We can go ahead and go to slide 2. So I'll start. So my name is Jake Martinez. My pronouns are he, him, his. I'm the Director of Youth Programs here at the New York Civil Liberties Union. We're the ACLU of New York, and I'm a part of our Education Policy Center. And I also just want to share one, reason why this work is so important to me, specifically around the Dignity for All Students Act, is as a young person, I was bullied, pretty horribly in school, had a very tough experience, not feeling supported. And, I did not grow up in New York, but bullying is a real issue in our schools. And as a young person, not having the support that is actually available in this law, was really hard. So, if my school or my state in Arizona had a law like the Dignity for All Students Act, I feel like my experience would have been much better. And so it's really important that we have as many community members as possible know about this law and share this information, so that we don't have students who are going through the same experience that I had as a young person, right? We want schools that are safer and more affirming for everybody. And so I'm going to toss it over for some quick introductions from my colleagues, Christian and Ray. Christian, I don't know if you want to start by just saying a little bit about who you are and your role at the NYCLU.
Sure. Thank you, Jake. Good evening, everybody. My name is Christian Singleton. My pronouns are he, him, his, and I'm a youth organizer to Spring Valley from the New York Civil Liberties Union. A little background about me. I grew up in Rockland County. I currently live in Haverstraw, New York. And so, yeah, I'm really excited to be here, join Jake and Ray to, just work with the community and just talk about this law and just bring change. And now I'll pass it to Ray.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for making the time this evening. I'm sure everyone has a busy week. My name is Ray She. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm education counsel at the NYCLU. And as an attorney, we hear a lot of complaints about students or families who feel like they are being bullied or harassed in school. So this is part of our outreach in order to teach you all about the law, but also to invite you to share with us things that you are seeing in your schools. And specifically, I'll be talking later about English language learners. And if there are things that you or students or community members that are experiencing issues related to that, I would be happy to connect offline with you all. And I can put our general email in the chat right now. So feel free to reach out. It's not just a one-way presentation today. We want to hear from you all if there are issues that you're seeing related to what we're talking about today. So thank you all for making the time.
Great, thank you, Christian and Ray. So we are going to be talking about the Dignity for All Students Act for the bulk of this presentation. This is a law that has been in effect since 2012. So it's not a super new law, but it has been, around for some years. The Dignity Act is, you know, a law that is meant to address bullying and harassment in schools. So some of the objectives, and sorry if you hear some beeping, I have my, I have to mute my Microsoft Teams. Some of our objectives for this workshop is to educate you all on the law and what it means for students, as well as parents and the school community. We're going to explain how to file a complaint when you believe, you know, a student's rights or your child's rights are being violated. And we're going to share the ways to escalate these complaints when necessary. So we're going to talk about complaints at the school level, which is DASA. We're going to talk about the state level, which goes into a whole nother area that we won't dive deep into today, but we will address it. And we're also going to talk about the federal level, and Ray's going to share more about OCR and what that is and what that stands for. And then also talk about the English Language Learner Parents Bill of Rights. And hopefully you can leave this presentation with some tangible next steps and some ways to take action. We're also going to talk about a little bit about youth organizing and ways that we can collaborate on building power among our young people. And so we're really excited to talk about all of these different things. Please also know that you can ask a question. Feel free to raise your hand or just call out. We're a pretty small group. If you're on Facebook, I don't know if there's a way to, you know, filter questions that way. We can also use the chat for that as well. But yeah, let's go ahead and dive in. We can go to the next slide. And Christian is going to talk to you all, if you don't know already, a little bit about the NYCLU and who we are.
Thank you, Jake. So a little bit about the NYCLU. So we are a nonprofit with nine offices and more than 200,000 members across New York State, with our closest offices being in Westchester County and New York City. So our mission at the NYCLU is to defend and expand civil liberties and rights for all New Yorkers. For example, some examples are rights to free speech, freedom of religion, privacy, education, the right to vote, the rights of immigration, and the right to be treated equally. Next slide, please. Thank you. And so some more history on the NYCLU. Again, our mission is to defend and promote the fundamental principles and values embodied by the Bill of Rights, the U.S. Constitution, and the New York Constitution, including, again, freedom of speech and religion, rights to privacy, and equality and due process for the law of all New Yorkers. And as you can see, here's a little timeline. We were founded in the 1920s as the ACLU, aka our national organization that spanned the entire United States. And then specifically in the 1950s, the affiliate branch, the New York Civil Liberties Union, was created with 8 chapters, and ever since 2016, there was nearly 1,700,000 members. And as you can see at the far end in 2020, our present day, a lot of our campaigns we're working on is the school to prison pipeline, student privacy, comprehensive sex education, the rights of the LGBTQ community, and many, many more issues.
Great. So ultimately, when we talk about the Dignity for All Students Act, it all comes back to school climate, right? So what do we mean when we say, you know, all students deserve a school climate that is safe and affirming? So this is just to give you a sense of like how we see school climate, right? We believe that it is the patterns of people's experiences of school life. It reflects the norms, the goals, values, interpersonal relationships, teaching, learning, and leadership practices, as well as the organizational structures that comprise school life. So it's essentially, you know, there's a lot of different factors that go into making a school what it is, right? And a climate that, you know, that is safe for all students is really dependent on a whole bunch of different factors. You know, the NYCLU, along with many of the advocates that we have been working with over the years on this law, you know, we believe that all students should be able to attend schools that are free from harassment, discrimination, bigotry, bias, and more. And over the years, I think one of the things that's really important is that we as an organization have worked with youth organizers across the state to advocate not only for the passage of this law, right? Some of our attorneys and policy councils were actually responsible for writing this law, drafting it, and sitting on multiple task forces to ensure that the law passed and had the right representation, whether that's students or parents or educators, as part of the, you know, the development of this law and its implementation, but also to uphold compliance, right? To ensure that we are not only, you know, advocating for just a law to pass, but making sure that, you know, this law is being implemented properly. And some of the things that we might talk about a little bit later is some of these surprising things that we actually have found is that students might not know who their Dignity Act coordinator is, right? So we will talk more about that person's role, but a lot of the times students don't know who that person is, right? There's a trained person that's actually supposed to respond to instances of bullying and harassment. And a lot of the times students will think, oh, well, maybe it's just my teacher, or maybe it's a guidance counselor, but there's actually a person that is responsible to the state to document and to respond to these situations. Other things we have found are that teachers, may not remember that they went to a training years ago and that they are, expected to be their school's Dignity Act coordinator. Parents may not receive the support that they need or information that they need to know about this coordinator's role. And so we hope that by sharing this information with you all, that you can, use this information and share with the community to get as many parents and students involved and to know about this law and educated about what it does and how to, leverage those rights, and how we can also hold our schools and our school districts accountable. We can go to the next slide. So when we think about school climate, we like to think of this as an equity-centered school climate model. And what that means is we look for a school climate that has caring relationships, whether that's between educators and students, educators and parents. It has high expectations, right? We want to see the best for our students. We want to make sure that they, not only feel safe, but they feel affirmed and supported, looking at different identities that students hold when they go into the classroom, making sure that they feel, supported in that way as well, that there's meaningful participation, that students feel heard and seen, and as well as emotional and physical safety, which is an important one, right? We hear about cyberbullying, we hear about bullying on campus, right? There's a lot of different ways that students can feel harm. And so it's important that we have, this law like DASA or the Dignity for All Students Act to respond to these instances when we don't feel like, equity is achieved in the school. And we can go to the next slide. And I would love to hear from the community for whoever feels comfortable sharing. And this is, you can share a positive experience that you've had in the school district. You can share whatever you feel comfortable sharing. But I would love to know, and I'm sure my colleagues would love to know, what does school climate look like in the East Ramapo Central School District or in Rockland County? What does that look like right now? Would love to hear from someone about their experience. And you can either use the raise hand function, talk out in the chat, or feel free to just share out over video or audio. What are some of the experiences that you all are hearing and seeing from, whether that's your child, if you're a student, parent? I see hand, Shri. Hi, Shri, one of our student ambassadors. Nice to see you.
Hey, Jake, nice to see you as well. Currently, I feel like the climate at school, I'm from Ramapo High School. For us, the climate is currently just unsafe. It is confusing. A lot of students are really confused about what the future will hold, both for their safety because of so many fights going on, and I think recently the violence has amped up a little. And people are confused about what they're going to do in the future because we are not getting the guidance that we deserve. The guidance counselors really haven't been up to snuff. Very recently, a new guidance counselor is filling in for someone, and she's really doing her job correctly, but I haven't seen it from the others. And the students are scared about what they're going to do for college. And their classes that they need to drop or they can't drop because of certain classes being too small or too big, and so them being unhappy with what they're set up for the future. And again, I don't think I emphasize enough, the fights getting really dangerous, tables being thrown at students, and it's when you walk the halls, you're more than likely going to get caught up in the middle of a fight and have to step back or start recording. That's what the students do, right? I've been in multiple classes where we were just learning, and right outside there was a fight going on and people stepping out to see what it was.
Thank you, Shri. I do want to acknowledge some of the comments in the chat. I don't know if folks want to add to that, but I do see a comment shared from someone who said they took their son away from bullying 3 years ago. They reported it and no one did anything. And now there's so many fights in both the schools. And there's a understanding that the school doesn't want to address the problems. And so I think that that is something that we want to address in this presentation and share with folks the right steps to take to alleviate these problems, or to at least address them and bring them to the school district's attention. And if the school district isn't responding, there is an escalation process, right? I don't know if Jennifer, if you wanted to share any questions you might have before we go to the next question.
Yes, I'm a fourth grade. Hi, my name is Jennifer McCallum, a fourth grade teacher in East Ramapo. Actually, I've been in multiple grades for about 10 years. This year, so I'm curious, and I'm so happy to hear that we have students there from the older grades that can give us facts. In my position, in this age, I feel like we are the people training the children how to resolve conflict and how to differentiate conflict from bullying. And so that conflict doesn't escalate to bullying, which is what it can do. And so my focus has really been about, taking the children out and what is the problem? What do you see? What do you see? They each say what they see, each say what affects them. And then we talk about how to solve it, really learning how to discuss the issue. And that's a fourth grade perspective. Also, they do a program called Candlelight or Candle something. And it was a wonderful program, only for about 10 weeks, though, where the children really talk about, feeling minimalized, feeling, bullied. What does that mean? How do I react? And things like that. So as a fourth grade teacher, I teach my students, and I've taught them all the time, that to say, please don't do that. That hurts me. And so in my position as a fourth grade teacher, this is what I am doing. Because I do question, and all of you are much more experienced with the whole picture of this field of bullying, inclusive are these wonderful students we have from the high school, is the fact that, to teach the children how much they can empower themselves to say, please, no, don't do that. And then for the teachers to understand that there's also some children that don't have that strength to do that. And so I'm here because I want to know, wow, how can I do better at my job so that when they go to Ramapo High, it doesn't happen. That's all. Thank you for letting me be here.
Yeah, we really appreciate you being here. And, if there are resources that you do have and would love to share those resources, anytime during this presentation, I think people would welcome that. And I think your perspective on, you're working with these fourth graders and you're wanting to make sure that, like, if they are having a positive experience where they're, the school that they're currently at, that when they move through schools in the district, that, that those aren't issues. And I think that's really important. I do see one comment from Anna about comment from Facebook. I don't know if you want to share that.
Yes. Okay. So we have from Andrea. She says, this is not about the climate. Are the parents aware the schools do not have ink for the printers or photocopiers? Teachers cannot provide students even with copies.
That's a really good question. I don't know if anyone wants to respond to that. I'm not sure if that's that we might have the answer to that specific question, but I don't know if there's someone that might have a response. That sounds a little bit more specific and outside of my wheelhouse. And we can also look into that and follow up with folks in the school district to see if that is something that they might have a response to. I do see another comment, 3 children in 3 different schools, and it varies, right? Reached out for mental health support for their daughter, still waiting for a week. Yep, there's a lot of issues there as well. I do see a hand, Edith. I don't know if you wanted to share your either response or comment.
Yes, hi, Edith Rivera. I work with Wolf and Darren and Joanne and Robinson with OpNow, but I'm also a parent within the district. So in just listening to the last teacher and speak about 4th grade and then how that would look in the high school, those are like really good skills to teach at the beginning. But when you get to the high school, they're very, very different. You can't just say, you're making me feel I don't want to. Usually validation in that aspect with the high school kind of goes a long way. Like, I hear what you're saying. I understand how you can feel that way. To actually have respect for other people's perspectives, because they may not be experiencing the same thing, so they can't put themselves in that position. But when you start expressing, I understand how you feel, I could imagine what that feels like. Then you're validating them. You're kind of not trying to fix the problem. You're not trying to problem solve. You're really validating from the beginning. So like for my school in BOCES in Westchester, we do a lot of that. Validating, empathy, sympathy with them. We try to make them see others' perspectives. Put yourself in that person's shoes. And we're at high school with TSP kids. DASA is a very serious thing that we put forth with our kids, because we deal with kids with a lot of mental health issues, or even with kids that are transitioning with transgender identities, sexual preferences, sexual identities. So for us, we're like at the front line for that. So we really hold DASA very seriously in our school. But as a parent of East Ramapo, and having just dealt with recently through the pandemic with cyberbullying, and I have a son, not a daughter, so most people are like, oh, it's like a girl thing to do, but boys are affected by that too, just the same. And I think as a parent, if I didn't have the professional skill set or the knowledge from like workshops such as this, I wouldn't even know as a parent, where would I go? Because sometimes it does fall on the wayside of the school. They're not bothered by it. It's like, oh, it's children's stuff, it's adolescent stuff, it's like rite of passage. I dealt with that, I'm fine. But not everybody processes that the same way. So when you have these kind of workshops like this, as a parent, I wish I did have it as a parent, but professionally I do. So I'm able to support my kids in that aspect. So when the school doesn't want to do anything, then the language that I have with DASA and going the next level and then writing a nice email, that kind of weighs a lot on them moving. So school districts sometimes want to, or administration wants to pass the buck. Well, it didn't happen in school. It's happened off grounds of school, but they're in the same class together, in the same community together. So what do you mean that it's not happening in the school? They're still with these young individuals that they're experiencing this outside of school. They almost have to wait till something happened in school to get them to move. So having a platform like this and educating parents and stuff really helps parentally to know where to go, what language to use when their kids are being put in situations that are unsafe.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, everything you said was so important. And I think your point about the experiences, right, of a fourth grader versus a high schooler are very different, but there are ways to model that climate that you want to see. And I think you shared a lot of really helpful resources or ideas for things that folks can do. So I would love to, connect with you as well. And maybe later when we discuss as a larger group, some ideas for actions, I think there's some tools there that could be really useful for other parents or teachers. So thank you so much for sharing that. One other thing that I want to talk about with regards to school climate and this sort of experience is we know that there are a lot of different challenges that students experience in East Ramapo and in the district, and we don't expect to solve every problem, but we are hopeful that knowledge about DASA and what it means will help bring about this change that folks are mentioning and sharing. And so we hope that at some point in this conversation or moving forward, that folks can identify, the changes they want to see in the district and really move us to a place where we can actually see those changes happening. So we can go ahead and go to the next slide. So we're going to focus, like I said, on the school level, right? DASA. We're going to talk more about what that is. And there are two other levels in which you escalate complaints around harassment and discrimination, and we will discuss those, but we are going to focus on the Dignity for All Students Act. We can go to the next slide and then the next slide. This is just the title. Cool. So the Dignity for All Students Act is a state law, right? Its intent was to afford all students in public schools an environment free of discrimination and harassment. So essentially the law says that no student shall be subjected to harassment or bullying by employees or students on school property, right? This includes employees, teachers, and school administrators, right? It's not just student to student. This includes on school property or at a school function. Nor shall any student be subjected to discrimination based on their actual or perceived race. And we'll talk a little bit more about the differences between actual and perceived. So race, color, weight, national origin, ethnicity, religion, religious practice, ability status, sexual orientation, gender, or sex by school employees or students on school property. And so the Dignity Act focuses on a number of different things. If you can go back one slide, sorry, there was just some little pieces that I wanted people to see. Thank you. There's a focus on counseling, right? So bringing in guidance counselors and professionals who understand how to work with and respond to these situations when they occur. There's a focus on professional development for teachers so that they have the tools that they need to respond. A focus on inclusive curriculum, making sure that students see themselves reflected in the coursework. Changes to policies or code of conduct, data recording. So not just, hearing about a student's experience with bullying or harassment and just, meeting with them one-on-one, but they have to record the actual experiences and report that to the state, right? There's a whole reporting process involved in the Dignity Act. And prompt responses to complaints, right? So if someone brings up a complaint, there actually has to be a response. They can't just shrug it off and say, well, we talked about it and it seemed like everything was fine, so we let it go or something like that. There actually has to be a prompt and formal response, and there is a timeline for that as well. And we can go to the next slide. So the discrimination can be based on actual or perceived discrimination, right? It can be, whether it's an actual, they actually believe that someone, has this identity or does not, right? And this can include religion and religious practice as well. So the Dignity Act applies to whether it's, the harassment is due to their actual membership in the categories that I listed earlier, or it's perceived that that person belongs to the identity in that category, or for no reason at all, right? A student or a teacher or someone could be bullying a student and there could be no real reason, right? That's all included under the Dignity Act. For religion and religious practice, that refers to their belief system, whether their practice is any act a person undertakes for religious purposes. It could be the clothing that they wear, eating or not eating foods, engaging in worship. Neither has to be common or officially sanctioned or typical to be severe, and it's protected under the law. And these are not all the categories. You can go to the next slide. These are not all of the categories that we're going to go over, but these are some of them. There are some new categories that were added to the Dignity Act, based on changes in the law, as well as the experience of students. I think now they include like hairstyle, right? There's other things that are included now. And then we can share what those new categories are later. But this does include race, ethnicity, and national origin. So race is referring to, the group that person belongs to. Usually it's based on like physical characteristics. The ethnicity can describe their heritage or culture or traditions related to their ethnicity. National origin, right? It describes their country of birth, a person's citizenship or ancestry, or that of their family. Next slide. Again, sexual orientation, right? And this is just, explaining what that is, right? It's the way of describing the gender to whom a person is attracted to, right? So there could be discrimination or harassment based on that. Next slide. Gender identity and expression, right? This is a big one that we see in schools in New York, and I believe someone mentioned this earlier. Gender is the social construct, the norms that we assign to males and females. Gender identity is their internal sense of being who they are, right? Whether they feel male, female, or someone else. And the way that they express their gender, right? So it could be the clothes that they wear, their hairstyles, names, the pronouns they use, right? The way that we communicate our gender identity to the world. These are all protected categories under the Dignity Act. Next slide. And just to give you a sense of, the definition of the word discrimination, it refers to the discrimination is anything that's against a student by a student or students and an employee or employees on the school property or at a school function. So it can be on campus, it could be off campus, it could be at prom, it could be on a trip, right? There's many different ways in which this can occur. And so it's not limited to only being on school grounds. Next slide. And so when we're thinking about harassment, bullying, it also includes cyberbullying. I believe that cyberbullying was added later to the Dignity Act after its passage, but it does now include cyberbullying, right? And so this harassment and bullying, it refers to the creation of a hostile environment by threat or abuse, and includes being, online, right? It means that it must or will have the effect of unreasonably or substantially interfering with the student's educational performance, right? Their opportunities or benefits, or their mental, emotional, or physical well-being. Reasonably causes or would reasonably be expected to cause a student to fear for their safety, right? It could also be, reasonable for them to fear of, actual or perceived physical injury or emotional harm to the student. And the next slide has the requirements for schools, right? So under the Dignity Act, there are several requirements that schools need to meet in order to be in compliance with the law. And you will find that sometimes some of these requirements are not met. I mentioned earlier that we work with youth organizers from all over the state, and we talk to them about this law and what it means. And every year we did a survey of those students to ask them if they knew who their person was. And sometimes it's only 8, 9, 10% of hundreds of students that we survey that actually know who the correct person is, right? They'll usually put in their guidance counselor, but that's actually not the person that they're supposed to go to. There's a whole other trained person that is supposed to respond to these complaints. And sometimes we find out that the reason why they don't know about this coordinator's role is because the school is not making the information widely available to the community, whether it's on their website, on the announcements, posters around the school, and various things that are required under the Dignity Act, right? That information has to be accessible. So some of the requirements for schools, the first one is they need to identify a coordinator to receive reports. This person sometimes can volunteer or be assigned by their school. They go through a training called a Respect for All training. They're divided up by grade level, I believe. There's like kindergarten through 5th, and then there's like a 6th through 12th grade trainings. I think they still do it that way, where they go through the training, they learn about how to submit the reports, how to respond, the importance of school climate, right? There's a whole training on this, and that person goes to that training and then gets an understanding and a list of all the responsibilities that the role will entail. The second thing is, the student, family members, and the coordinator have to make an oral or written report, so it needs to be documented. The school employees must notify an administrator or their DASA coordinator within 1 day of witnessing the bullying. So if it's a school employee that is seeing the bullying happening, they have, within 1 day of witnessing that, they have to make a report and notify the DASA coordinator. Or receiving a report of harassment and no later than 2 days after filing the report. The DASA coordinator typically leads the investigation of that report and ensures the follow through and makes sure that all the appropriate measures are taken. This law also requires that there is no retaliation against the individual who reports or assists in the investigation. They need to develop a school strategy to prevent harassment, bullying, and discrimination. The school leaders have to make a regular report to their superintendent regarding data and trends related to the harassment, bullying, and discrimination. So there's a whole formal process by which the school is required to follow. There's a whole reporting process, a tracking process. The data is collected to see how many instances were reported by the school district or by the school. And the leaders in the school community are, specifically the DASA coordinator is expected to make a report to their superintendent regarding what is going on. And school administrators or designee is required to promptly notify local law enforcement if necessary of harassment, bullying, and any discrimination when required to do so. We can go to the next slide, and I want to pause if anyone has any questions. There's a lot of information, and we will make sure to share all of this with you after as well, so you have all of this available. But I do want to make space for anyone who might have questions or thoughts. Yes, the coordinator is expected to respond to the bullying. I see a question. They are expected to respond to, and it doesn't mean that they just suspend the student and they're like, that's done. There actually has to be a school climate fostered, one that is affirming and you know, and improves the school climate. It's just not, you know, suspension, right? There's actually needs to be something done on the school, in the school, to ensure that the, you know, the situation is actually resolved and not is just met with zero tolerance policies like suspensions. So one thing that I would love to do, and I don't know if I have screen sharing properties, but I would love to show you where the list is of the coordinators for East Ramapo Central School District. So Christian just shared a link in the chat, and there is a list there. I don't know if, I think I might be able to request screen sharing access. I don't know.
Yeah,
if
I just passed it over your way so you can screen share.
Great. Okay, so I'm going to screen share and show you where we can, where you can find the list of the dignity coordinators. So I don't know, can folks see my screen? Great. So let me just say, and I know Christian can agree, we had some trouble finding this list, right? When you go to the East Ramapo Central School District website, right? You go here and you see like lots of information, right? And you are trying to find out like where this is. You're trying to, you know, see, okay, where do I find Dignity for All Students Act coordinator? Where do I go? Christian can attest to this. We had some trouble, right? We had to Google it first and Google the name and then the district, and it brought up this page. And so the first thing I'll say is the school district needs to update the link and make it more accessible so that people can find it, because it was not easy. But here, and I also say the formatting is also a little wonky, so it was kind of hard to look at it and see. But I think we understand how the formatting is meant to be, how it's intended. But as you can see, I think some of it got a little bit wonky. But there's a whole bunch of different Dignity Act contacts, so we can assume, it's safe to assume that everybody listed on the left here went through a training, right? And they are expected to respond to instances of bullying and harassment in the school district. So it says here, Dignity Act coordinator responsibilities, right? They're supposed to support staff in deciding if the incident falls under DASA. They're supposed to help the staff, parent, and student fill out the form. They are supposed to collaborate with the principal, assistant principal, and school counselors to conduct investigations and create interventions between the victim and the offender. Track the DASA related incidents on a spreadsheet, right? We go back to that reporting. And the report forms need to be kept in a DASA binder alphabetized by person. Yep, there are a lot of names here. So you can see in the central column, it tells you where the coordinators are. So I think it's, you know, like these three, I think are for ECC Dignity Act coordinators. I think these two are El Dorado. I'm not a fan of this formatting, just to be honest. It's very complicated to like look at this and see, but I think I understand like how it is. I think all these people are Elmwood. These five are probably Elmwood.
If you scroll to Hempstead, I'll be able to see if that's true.
I see Liza, Sheila, Jennifer, Hempstead Dignity Act coordinators. Does that seem like those folks work there?
Pardon me.
They might also be outdated, which is a whole nother
Yes,
issue.
Sheila no longer works there, and Jennifer Wilmoth no longer is superintendent of schools. Liza is the psych person in our building.
So very important point that Jennifer is raising is that this information is outdated. So that is not good. So we need to, you know, knowing this information, we need to get in contact with our school districts and find out who are the replacements here. And if not, if there are no replacements, is this person expected to respond to all of it? All of the you know, the harassment and the bullying that's going on in the schools, like what's going on here? So this website, you know, knowing, just hearing from one experience, like it could be likely that this information is outdated, and that's not good. And so one tool that you can leave with after this workshop is contact these districts and find out, right? Contact them and say, you know, I went through a training with the NYCLU, and they shared with us a list of Dignity Act coordinators, and the list appears to be inaccurate. There's folks there that no longer are with the school. And we need to see some changes here. We need to see an updated list of coordinators. By law, they are required to do this, right? This is a part of the law. They can't just put names on here that are not people that are actually the coordinators. Like, that's a clear violation of DASA, right? The information has to be accurate and updated and shared in a way that is easily accessible, right? A lot of times when we're working with youth organizers, they will be walking around school and we'll say to them, you know, there should be posters around your campus that have the name. It says respect for all on it, or respect for all in New York City, but they also say Dignity Act. And there are posters around campus and it's supposed to say the person's name, their phone number, and an email. And a lot of the time we hear from students, they've never seen that. They've never seen the poster. They've never heard about it on the announcements. And this is really upsetting, right? Like, this is one of the strongest anti-bullying laws in the state. I mean, in the country, right? This is a very strong anti-bullying law, but what good is this law if nobody knows about it, right? You can have the greatest law in the world, but if nobody knows about it and doesn't know how to assert their rights, that is a real issue, right? So looking at this list, I think one of the take actions that I didn't list at the end of this presentation, but I think something you can do is look at this website and look to see if your coordinator is correct, right? I haven't been able to monitor the chat, so I'm gonna see. I'm gonna get off my soapbox for a minute. So I see, okay. Have there been changes in the school environment as a result of DASA? I think there have been, and I think there can be. Oh, and hi, Steve. I think there can be changes to the school environment, and there have been, right? You know, I've worked with youth organizers for the last almost 6 years at the NYCLU and have, you know, seen the real change that they can enact and affect in their schools. And this all comes with awareness, right? The more people that know about this law, the more students can be able to assert their rights, and parents can also assert their rights as well. We've had our students make PSAs on this law. We've had our students, you know, do canvassing outside, right, and share information, share one-pagers or information, right? The more that this information gets out, the better our schools will be. And seeing some comments about retired teachers, right? It's outdated, retired, right? This is not good. So this website needs to be active. I can follow up with you, Maria, after this workshop, and maybe we can get some folks to be organizers and start working to get this page updated, because seeing this many people that are retired is not good.
Yeah.
And
this is not the only page on their website that needs some adjustments.
And you know, they're all important, but this is like a life-saving law. And we need to make sure that this is updated, and it's unacceptable that there's so many people that are on this list that are no longer employed, and they haven't updated this, right? If there's replacements, there needs to be replacements listed here. And when that page is updated with all the new people, an email needs to go out to the district or to the families or whatever. This information has to be made available, right? This is by the law.
Steve has his hand raised.
Yes, and I'm also seeing your comments, Steve, about the NYSED website. It does report items such as discrimination and assault. You can see that also in the OCR database that Ray's going to talk about. Yeah, seeing very old info. Yes, Steve.
Hi, yeah, hi, sorry I put the comment in and I went to the NYSED website because I've seen this years ago. It was an issue that came up. We looked and seen, and like other districts are reporting, and we know that there's fights in East Ramapo, the students are reporting it. But when you check on the state website where the data is being supposed to be collected and supposed to be sent to the website, in other districts in Rockland County, you see 20 or 30, you know, incidents, but for East Ramapo, it's like 0 incidents, you know, and maybe one here, one there. There's like almost no reporting of anything happening. And, you know, this is during a period of time when other school districts don't have monitors. It's like, why is this coming up in this meeting that everything is outdated and they're not reporting anything, and it's not been turned up by the monitors? Where are they? Where have they been? That's all I wanted to say. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, your point is very important. Shri even said it earlier, that there are, you know, numerous fights at school. There are instances that are happening and it's not being reported. Steve mentioned that, you know, that you can see the reporting on the website and it's not there. So, you know, I'm going over this law and you're already seeing, you know, things that are not being met. So there's, you know, a lot of organizing that we are all going to be needing to do. But, you know, with this information, empowered with this information, like we can continue to push the district for transparency around the folks that are in this rules, and also reporting it accurately. And I saw a comment here that I think is very important, is that it's possible that this should be, you know, mentioned at a next school board meeting. Someone could, you know, go and say, you know, we went through the list of all your Dignity Act coordinators and they're outdated. This information needs to be updated. You know, the Dignity Act says that this information needs to be accessible to families and to students. So we need to see this updated. We also need to see the link more visible on the website, right? And then on this website, you know, so one of the things that, one of the questions that we always get is, how do you report, how do you file an incident report for DASA, right? How do you let it be known that there is this harassment or discrimination happening? So every school district has their own way to report violations under the Dignity Act, which is not always the easiest thing, because every school district is going to have like their own form. NYSED will give them like a model form that they can use. But here on East Ramapo's website, thanks Maria for the information on the school board meeting. On the website, you can see the incident report here, and you can see the form. It's pretty straightforward. NYSED does list like the sample form so that they can see, you know, so school districts can see like what a sample form looks like and can model theirs after that. So this is the form that you would fill out and you would turn it into the Dignity Act coordinator. I would make a record of everything and share with, you know, a teacher who is witness, or make sure that there's copies and that there's a lot of documentation. It's very important. In the incident reporting form, you obviously see like the name, the student can, you know, list this. They put in all the information about the school, where it happened, their grade. This, you know, has many of the main categories of what the person feels that they were discriminated because of, and other, you can put, you know, one of the other categories here. And then you would fill in like all the information about the witnesses, where it happened. Was it online, right? Is it cyberbullying, and what happened? If you have like documentation of like online, you know, conversations or things like that, you would attach this. You know, photographs, anything, right, that you think that would help show and support this complaint form. And then you'll see, you know, the investigation form here, which is meant to be completed by the Dignity Act coordinator, and will, you know, include information on who they interviewed, who they talked to, what incident, you know, if they saw the incident, like what happened, if they were like a witness to the incident, right? You know, was it on school property? Was it at a function, right? Like a field trip or prom or whatever, right? What kind of offenses did it involve? You know, was it a written complaint? Was it directly observed? Lots of information here to be taken down, a very thorough form that can be completed by the student, the parent, right? And submitted to the Dignity Act coordinator so that they can document this. So there is a form on the website. I wonder if this should be updated. It looks like it's about 8 years old. So we may want to also push for the school district to potentially look at changes to DASA, or changes to the reporting requirements or forms, and see if there's an updated form that needs to be made available on the website as well. It could be that it's, you know, that nothing has changed in the reporting requirements, but I do think that they should do a temperature check of this form and make sure that it has everything that needs to be, you know, included as part of the reporting. So it sounds like our biggest, you know, take actions, in addition to the other homework assignments I'll give everybody, is to review this list and get in touch with the school district and let them know that it's outdated, and also to check in with the school district, particularly maybe at the next board meeting, about the reporting form and ensure that it is the most up to date. And, you know, it could be that it's up to date and nothing has changed and this is fine, but we should still have someone assess. There's also here a presentation that looks like it's given to the staff. It's a little bit older, but most of this is still accurate. So it looks like this is what goes to the administration, so that you can see kind of like exactly what they're learning and what they're hearing about, right? So you know, it's very similar to what we're going to be discussing and have been discussing, but this is like, it looks like this is the presentation that is given to staff and faculty. I see Maria.
Yeah, I just wanted to check in if this form is comes in different languages, or what they have on the website is probably it, or are they required to have that, including the poster that you were talking about? Should that be?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So I don't, with regards to whether or not it's on this website, I don't know. I don't know, Ray, do you happen to know, or Anna? I see Anna, your hand went up.
Okay, so I have a suggestion. Shirley, can you go all the way to the top of the
Oh, this is
page?
me, by the way, screen sharing.
Oh, it's you, sorry.
No
Okay, you
worries.
see where it says translate on top? I want to test if they really updated the website. If you put translate, can you do Spanish?
No.
It says Spanish on it instead of Espanol. Right there, the
Oh,
last.
sorry, mouse is losing control.
I think it translates the actual page, but I think what Jake clicked on was a document.
The form,
Okay.
which is here.
Right.
So this looks like this is
Oh.
in Spanish. The form is
Let's
not in
see.
Spanish. So we
No.
need to get this form.
In
This is
different languages.
another important flag, is that we need to get this form in multiple languages and available. It should say here, right? Like English, Spanish, Creole, like there should be a whole bunch of different languages here. So that's another thing that we can ask. And you know what, honestly, even if it's not in the law, it should be there.
Yep.
We have families and people that speak multiple languages. Like, it doesn't matter if it's in the law, we should still call for, I'm not saying like don't care about the law, but I'm saying like it's important that it's in every language anyway, right? Like we should be advocating for this anyway. So if it's in the law, right, that's even more credibility for us. But also it's like, regardless, right, there should be multiple languages here. And so we definitely need to flag that as well. You guys have a lot of homework assignments. Okay, so I think I'm going to stop sharing and maybe we can go back to the presentation. And I'm also talking a lot, so I'm going to try to see how much we have. Oh, we're almost to Ray, so I think we're okay on time. Okay, so we can go to next slide. Slide 20. Oh, actually go to slide 19. It should say DASA coordinator at the top. There we go. So again, under the Dignity Act, the contact information for the coordinator is shared in the following ways, right? We said it's listed in the code of conduct, or it should be. So you should check the school's code of conduct and see if the Dignity Act coordinator is there. It should be posted on the website and made available, right? Made accessible. Posted in highly visible areas of the school building. So I said posters, right? I've been to a few schools, you know, in New York State and in the city, New York City, and I've seen some of the posters and what they look like. They're all kind of different, but sometimes they'll just say like Dignity Act, like, are you being bullied? Contact so-and-so, and it'll have the information there. So posters, et cetera, are ways to make it visible. It should be available at district and school level administrative offices. And, you know, there should be a yearly notification as well to parents so that they know as well. That's also part of the law. And so again, I said this already, but we have found that from working with our students, that many of them and their parents do not know who their coordinator is. And so we have to get this information out, right? And seeing that like the website is outdated, even if you wanted to go and find out who it was, it looks like you might not even really be able to do that. So it looks like some phone calls need to be made to schools and to get that information. And we can assist as well. Our organization would be more than happy to assist folks in the community with getting that information and working with you all to make sure that this information is available and accessible and updated. And we can go to the next slide. So the trainings that they go through, right? So if you're a Dignity Act or a DASA coordinator, there is a specific training that you have to go through that I said a little bit about earlier, which is basically, it trains them to help raise awareness and sensitivity to like what harassment actually looks like. There could be, very apparent, obvious harassment happening. It could be more like microaggressions, right? There's a lot of different ways that it can exist. And so they go through a training and they're meant to be, taught what it looks like and see that. Address the social patterns of harassment, how it exists, how school climate is formed, right? How that develops over time, what bullying looks like and how that develops, and discrimination in general, and enable the employees to prevent and respond to the incidents of harassment and bullying. And so just for the second point that talks about the social patterns, it's talking about like, not only just how to identify it and see like what it looks like, but also the strategies for effectively addressing problems of exclusion, right? Students feeling left out, bias, and aggression in educational settings. The next slide is the form, which we just went over, and shows you, more information about what to include. And before we go to steps for escalation, I see one comment. Is there one administrator who is responsible so we don't have to deal with each school? So every school by law is meant to have their own coordinator. And that is because of the sheer number of students at every school, right? Every school has to have at least one Dignity Act coordinator to respond to these instances of bullying. Now, it's possible that the district could have somebody who's responsible for like overseeing like a DASA program of some kind, and we can contact the district themselves and find out like, who are the coordinators for this, who oversees this process, right? And who's responsible for maintaining contact of the list of all the coordinators, right? I would love to know more about that if folks have ideas about how to get in touch with someone. And we can also, strategize about that offline to get more information on like how to do more of a big picture update rather than contacting each school. And we can go to the next slide. So I mentioned that there are numerous different ways in which you can report discrimination and harassment. And so the school level, which we talked about, is, under DASA, right? We talked about the reporting form. We talked about how to find the list of the coordinators and how to contact them. Talked about the trainings that they go through and talked about how they do the reporting process and the follow through. And then there's also a state level under New York State, right? Under the New York State Human Rights Division, you can also file complaints and escalate complaints at the state level if the district is not responding. Usually it's meant, usually your first line of communication is to report to the school, right? If the school isn't responding, then you take that even higher, right, to the state level. And, on the next slide, and we won't go over this form, but I did want to put the link in the presentation so that folks can have it. But basically the form, and Maria, it's in the notes of the PowerPoint slide, so they should be able to see that when they get the slides emailed to them. But oh, you can go back. Sorry. In the notes on this slide, when you get out of the presentation, they'll have the form like in there, and I can also like pull that out. And I see Christian. Thank you so much, Christian. The link is in the chat to the New York State Division on Human Rights form. And you would use that form to file a complaint, as a current or former student or as an applicant, a parent, right, against any public school, including public school districts, charter schools, BOCES, public colleges, universities, universal pre-K, Head Start, any publicly funded pre-kindergarten program, any public school, right, in New York State, or any private school at any education level, excluding those which are for-profit or run by religious organization. If you're not sure, what for-profit or religious nature of the school is, you can file a complaint and we can still look into, and they will still look into whether or not the status of the school, classifies as for-profit as a preliminary matter. I see. Yep. Okay, great. So now we're going to go into the federal level, and my colleague Ray here is going to talk to you about OCR, and then following that, we'll talk to you about the Parents' Bill of Rights for New York State English language and multilingual learners.
Thank you, Jake. That was so much great information. We can go to the next slide, please. Okay, so we've talked right now about the school level, the state level, and I want to talk to you about the federal level in terms of being a resource for complaints about discrimination in schools and school districts. Next slide. Thank you. The Office for Civil Rights is a department within the U.S. Department of Education, so the federal agency, and they are in charge of investigating complaints about covered entities discriminated based on race, color, national origin, sex or gender, including pregnancy or parental status or gender identity or transgender status, disability and age, and also retaliation for the purposes of interfering with any right or privilege protected by the laws that OCR enforces. So what that means is the areas that OCR covers are more narrow than what DASA covers. DASA covers things like hairstyle. OCR would not cover that unless it was related to your hairstyle as a function of your national origin, for instance, or as your gender identity. So I just want to be very clear that OCR only has the power to enforce these certain federal laws, say Title IX, Title VI. You may have heard of some of them before. And it only has the power to investigate complaints against covered entities, which means these public and private programs that receive federal funds from the U.S. Department of Education. What that means is all public K through 12 schools receive some funds from the U.S. Department of Education. This also includes most public and private colleges, as well as sometimes some vocational rehabilitation agencies and say libraries. But that means not everything is covered. It has to be, I think in this instance, you're safe if you're looking at your school or your district, but there may be, say, like an after-school program that doesn't receive federal funds that you believe is discriminating. OCR may not be the entity to go to in that instance. It would depend on whether or not that program has federal funding, if OCR has authority over that. So it is more limited. I want to just reiterate that OCR is more limited in terms of the areas, the protected classes that they cover, and also the types of programs that they can enforce these actions against. If you feel that you have been discriminated against, you generally have to file a complaint with OCR within 180 days of the last act of discrimination. If it's outside of that window, you can request a waiver and you need to show good cause why you did not file your complaint within that 180-day period. Thank you, Christian, for putting up that link, and we have a link here in the slides for that too. So when you file this complaint, there's a process that it goes through. And what that means is that OCR will determine whether or not first you need to sign, they need more information from you, and there's a certain number of days, I think it's 2 weeks, that you need to return the information they're requesting. They may request that you sign a consent form so that they can ask the school about your situation. And so there's a procedure, and then this OCR will notify the recipient. So it's the school or the district that the complaint is filed against. They will notify the recipient about this complaint and work towards something called a voluntary resolution agreement, so that the school voluntarily decides to change its policies that are discriminatory. So all of those past resolution agreements are actually available online. You can read them, you can look at them, you can see what OCR has done in the past. And it was actually under, depending on which presidential administration OCR is operating under, sometimes the policies can change a little bit in terms of their enforcement. For instance, under the Trump administration, OCR declined to investigate complaints about systemic discrimination. For instance, saying that the school district or the school itself is systematically discriminating against a group of people. They instead, that administration instead preferred to focus on individual instances of discrimination, such as my child was bullied or harassed because of their gender or because of their race. The Obama administration had actually investigated systemic instances of discrimination, such as all transgender students in this district are being discriminated against because of the bathroom policy. And so I would expect that the current administration would be investigating these systemic instances of discrimination. And in that way, OCR may be a good tool or a good outlet for any sort of instances where there are sort of these systemic or widespread issues. we would hope that DASA would also be useful in that sense at the school level or the district level, but obviously there are some implementation problems that we've already discovered during this workshop. For instance, this outdated list. So OCR is practiced at also investigating these instances of discrimination. There are regional offices all over the United States. The main office is headquartered in Washington, D.C., but there is a New York regional office, and these regional offices actually investigate pretty thoroughly the nature of the complaint on the ground. And so next slide, please. Yeah, so now I want to talk about Parents' Bill of Rights here, and then we can go to one more slide, please. Specifically for English language learners, the New York State Department of Education has a Parents' Bill of Rights. And this is very important because it has information about what parents are entitled to with regards to their children's education. So this is very useful as a resource for advocates because it's translated into 29 different languages. And the Parents' Bill of Rights, I'm going to put the link right here in the chat. Okay. Here, for instance, I just want to read some of them to you so you get the idea and understanding of what is covered here. So this is from the State Department of Education. It's part of the commissioner regulations. So you have the right to enroll your child in school without being asked to provide information or paperwork, which may reveal you or your child's immigration status. So you don't need to provide any documentation in order to register your child. And this is important because we have heard reports from East Ramapo about students being counseled against registering in the district for misinformation, such as you need to provide documents. And so if this is something that is happening to you or you have heard of it happening, again, we have our schools@nyclu.org email, and we would definitely like to hear about it. Another right guaranteed under this regulation is that you have the right to have a qualified interpreter or translator in your preferred language for critical interactions with the school district. We would interpret this to mean that if your child has, for instance, a disciplinary hearing, that we would say that this ensures that you should have an interpreter at that disciplinary hearing, or that any notices, such as your child is being suspended, those notices should be translated into your preferred language. And so part of the advocacy work here is knowing what your rights are. And this Parents' Bill of Rights is very important because it lays out very clearly what parents are entitled to. And again, this is an underserved population that may or may not feel comfortable advocating for their students. So it's on us, it's on the community members to make sure that there are these safe spaces for parents to advocate for themselves and for their children. For another big one is that if there are 20 or more grade level students that speak the same home or primary language, there's the right to have your child in a bilingual education program. So I've heard that there are additional languages, not Spanish, not Haitian Creole, but say Polish, where those students do not speak English, they don't speak Spanish or Creole, and they don't have already a bilingual education program. But if there are 20 or more of them in the same grade level, then they would be entitled to a bilingual education program. And if that's the case, again, we would want to hear about that in order to help facilitate some advocacy on behalf of you to the school or to the district. So there are many other rights here. There's 17 listed in these Parent Bill of Rights. So each one of these, it can be a little confusing, right? DASA, the state, the federal government, this commissioner's regulation, these different areas that have their own, these are each individual laws, but we just want to re-emphasize that if it just doesn't feel right to you or doesn't feel fair, there's some sort of issue where you feel like there's some sort of discrimination, like trust your gut. You are a parent, you're a community member, you know your community, you know your child best. Please like open up a line of communication with us or other advocates, and then we can try to help figure out which one of these applicable laws your issue may be helped by or solved by. We can't guarantee anything, but we're happy to talk about it with you. And we don't want you to be confused. We just want to tell you about these resources that are available. And I will turn it back over to Jake to talk about our discussion if we have time. So thank you all.
Yeah, I see we have a few minutes. I'm actually going to pass it to Christian, and if you want to maybe close this out with some questions, and then I'll come back to talk about some of the take actions. We can go ahead and do that.
Sure thing. Thank you, Ray, for all that information. And so, I have the slide here, it's fine. So some questions that we can consider right now after all the information you guys have just learned. So one of the questions, for example, is how can we work together to ensure DASA is successfully implemented in East Ramapo? So that's one question. Another question is, what do students need to feel safer in the district, and what policies are there that need to change in DASA? Not just DASA, but also the school, as Jake already stated on the website, the coordinators aren't even up to date. So, that's a key thing we need to bring up with the district and make sure that's changed. And also, how can we leverage the district's state monitors to affect change? And so if I can copy paste these and put them in the chat as well. If anyone needs some time to quick, like 30 seconds to reflect.
Do you want us to take down the screen share currently?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, you can take it down for now.
And I think one of the questions that's listed here that's a really important one is how do we utilize the district state monitors, knowing that there's inaccurate information, or there are issues with the visibility of the information, the accessibility of it, right? Not having forms in multiple languages, right? There's a lot of issues that we've identified today. And I think that there are opportunities for us to, I know one idea was, bring this up at the next school board hearing. I would love to know if other folks have ideas about how we can, use this information to make sure that the district is following DASA and is, providing this information to the community. So any ideas that you all might have, I think we can, share them now, or if you get them later, we would be happy to meet with you all and have a follow-up, maybe more of a planning session or something like that. But want to make the space for that in case anyone did have an idea that jumped out.
Hello, good evening. Good evening. How's everyone doing?
Hi, good. How are you?
I'm doing great. My name is Darren Greaves. I'm with Opportunity Now Incorporated. And I just had a question, and I hope we'll have an opportunity to speak a little bit about our programs later on. But do you have access to information that we could possibly, because we have a youth program, it would be great if we had pamphlets or information that we can just pass along to the children and the families to make sure that they have this information close to their chest in case they really need it?
Yeah, we definitely do on our website. There's a whole host of different Know Your Rights guides and pamphlets and things like that. So I will find the link and drop it in the chat, but there's definitely a whole host of ones that are specifically for youth.
All right, thank you. In multiple languages as well, I assume.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
And I did put into the chat if folks feel comfortable to share their emails privately to me, and I also shared mine so that we can make sure to continue the conversation on follow-ups.
I just shared in the chat the link to our Know Your Rights section. So there's a lot of different ones in there. There's LGBTQ rights, what to do if you're stopped by police in schools, healthcare for teenagers. There's a whole bunch of different ones on there. So definitely download those and share that information to whoever and however you can. Just looking at the time, I know that we have only 3 minutes left, but yes, Anna.
Hi, so a comment from Facebook, Andrea said, email the people on the list and see if they are currently DASA coordinator or see if email bounces back. Also, she commented, I probably can get you time on WRCR. And then she said, can someone share a chat on Facebook?
The chat question, I'm not sure. I think maybe they're asking for the links that were sent in the
Yes.
chat. There's a way to
Okay.
get those links to them. I think we can.
Yeah, if folks just share their email somewhere, if you're on Facebook, you can just private message that and we'll collect all of those emails and make sure to get the links and also some of the comments so that folks can see it.
And Christian, do you want to talk a little bit about some of the youth organizing plans that we have?
Sure thing. Maria, do you guys have the form? You guys can screen share that real quick.
Yep,
I just
Cheryl?
put the link in the chat too.
So let me just pull it up. All right. So my role as a youth organizer, of course, is to be the personal contact for NYCLU in East Ramapo. And so what I'm in the process of starting is a youth activism program to work with the local high school students in both Ramapo and Spring Valley. And so on the flyer, I can just read off the flyer till it's brought up, but on here it says, is that it? Perfect. So right here, the New York Civil Liberties Union is looking for East Ramapo high school students who want to speak publicly on education issues facing the district. So in this program, you'll be working with me. You'll work closely with the local NYCLU representative, the local NAACP chapter, as well as community organizations, for example, Proyecto Faro, this space that we're here right now. This is a great opportunity for students to, just have a platform and voice their concerns, as well as take action on issues affecting the district, such as that has been brought up multiple times: transportation, class sizes, lack of extracurricular activities. And now, of course, with DASA, I can definitely work with students to create workshops on DASA so that they'll be able to speak about it themselves, spread this information to their peers who might not have a full understanding of this. And also learn to create, facilitate, and participate in public workshops covering topics such as student civil rights and the rights of immigrant students, as well as speak at events, online actions, and school board meetings. And as well as, and in terms of, as a group, for example, say there's a kid who wants to participate, but, public speaking is not really their thing, they want to help work on the PowerPoint presentations. We can do activities such as that, as well as I'm going to start incorporating, the use of social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. That's a big one for high school students, be able to just create TikTok videos addressing a lot of these issues. And so, because I know TikTok is very, very viral, the way the algorithm of the app is set up. And as well as, and for all participating students, they have the opportunity to earn community service hours or $400 stipend that'll be given to them at the end of the year, end of the school year in June. So if you can, there's actually a clickable link on this in the online form. Ray also put the link in the chat, but if you click this link, it will take you to the youth organizing sign-up sheet as stated here, where students will be able to fill in their first, last name, grade, school, email, phone number. And this information is only accessible to me and Jake, as Jake is our youth programs director, so don't worry, student privacy is very safe. Only me and Jake will be able to see this information. And some important information as well for if there's any students in this chat that are listening. There's no specific sign-up deadline, so don't worry if you want to take your time and think this over. There's no rush. I will be planning to have an info session the week of February 21st. So once students send their information out, I'll be emailing them a specific date, and there they'll be able to, meet me. I'll be able to introduce myself and work I'm doing, if they have any questions about the program, any questions about NYCLU. And so, yeah, I'm just really looking forward to starting this. I've been in this role now for the past 4 months, and I've just been seeing the community, they want to bring change to the district. And, I definitely believe the youth have the ability to use their voices, especially with the school board, the state monitors again, and, not just DASA, again, if there's any other issues students see, I'll be able to work with them to create, different platforms, being able to speak at events. And so again, if there's any students in here, I highly, highly encourage you guys to sign up and, help bring change to the district.
Thanks, Christian. So do we have,
sorry, there's a question. So for the age limit, there's no, it's a high school student, so 14 to high school age 18.
Great. So that's all we have. I don't know if folks, have other questions, we shared our contact information, people can reach out, and thanks for having us. We really appreciate it. And we hope that, you all were able to learn something new, and we have a lot of homework to do, but I'm looking forward to working with you all. I know Ray and Christian are as well. And we're, really grateful to have been here and be able to share this important information with you all.
Thank you so much, Jake, Ray, Christian. And, this is just the first step of many steps that we're going to take together. And I want to just remind folks that this is recorded. So please share out to all of your networks for all the people who missed this evening. Again, share your email, send us a private message on Facebook or Instagram, and we'll make sure to get all of this information out to you. Please, especially if you know young people that would be interested in this program, it's really important to get them to feel supported so that they can help create their own safe environment for themselves with the support of caring and loving adults, right? I know we are over time, so if you have to leave, thank you also for coming. We do have a few more announcements that we want to make sure we get out to folks tonight. So I just want to open it up for, before I introduce the announcement. If you have more questions, please feel free to send them to us. And if we can't answer them, we'll try to figure out ways that we can support finding them. So thank you again to our special guests. Darren, or Wolf, or Joanne. I don't know if you all want to share about your youth supportive program as well.
All right. Thank you so much, Maria. And thank you, Mr. Martinez, Mr. Singleton, Ms. Ray. As you mentioned, I'm here with my partner, Wolf. We'll be very quick. I just want to say once again, thank you so much for a great presentation. Every time we go to these community events or speak to members of the community or even the youth, the same thing usually echoes, the lack of information being disseminated, or the lack of accurate information, as we saw there, the lack of equity or true equity, safe learning environments. And that means, of course, not only safe physical learning environments, but mentally safe environments as well for the children to learn and grow, especially during those high school years. So we actually developed a great youth program. It's the Opportunity Now Youth Leadership Program. And we're partnering with the East Ramapo School District and Blossom Girls. One of our partners, Joanne, is on the line with us as well. She's going to speak a little bit about that. And I just want to pass the phone to my partner, Wolf. I'm actually driving right now, so if I get disconnected, please forgive me. But Wolf, if you don't mind just sharing a little bit about the Youth Leadership Program and, of course, the My Brother's Keeper and My Sister's Keeper program as well, if Joanne isn't here.
Yeah, sure. So thank you guys. Beautiful, beautiful presentation. Jay, Christian, Ray, thank you, Maria, and your team at Proyecto Faro. So the Youth Leadership Program is aimed at empowering the youth to become leaders in the community and good citizens in their neighborhood. So we've partnered with Dr. Olumiju, the assistant principal at Spring Valley, to implement this program after school from about 2:30 to 4 p.m. So we meet with a group of eager young ladies and men, and we go through different role play scenarios, activities to empower them to become better leaders. So that's the project, and that's the program we're attacking. But mainly this year, we're focusing on in-school violence. Because in-school violence is the biggest issue that's plaguing our community. So speaking to Mrs. Bino, the assistant principal at Ramapo, and Dr. O at Spring Valley, they both mentioned violence is at an all-time high. So to piggyback on the observation Steve made, I don't know why that number reported on the NYSED site shows 0. So our goal is to implement a violence prevention program. We also partnered with the Rockland County Youth Bureau, and we have a lot of market partners in the county that is going to help us implement these programs. So, I messaged Christian, and I hope we can get together. And Maria, thank you guys for what you're doing. I don't want to take too much of your time.
Thanks so much, Wolf and Darren. I'm going to take just a few more minutes. Just want to let folks know that we are doing a food distribution in Spring Valley, not this Saturday, but the following Saturday. And we've been talking about actually bringing our surveys out there, and maybe it's a good time to bring some of these DASA forms if folks need support, you know, and we have folks who speak Spanish as well as Creole, and we'll go ahead and translate those forms and not wait for the district to do it so that we can get them filed and sent in to the folks that will find out who are updated DASA coordinators. So we'll send some information about that. So please check our Facebook and Instagram for those dates. And we also have a free legal clinic next week on Wednesday at Salvation Army. So please, again, the flyer is in the chat. Thank you so much, Shirley, for putting it out there. And actually next Thursday, this same time, we are going to be focusing on bullying and intimidation. So a continuation of what we've brought up today, and Neighbors Link is going to be speaking with us regarding that as well. We've had some students and parents come in where they have been bullied in a way that they have been told that they will call ICE on particular students. And there are laws that protect, you know, both parents and students around that. So we want to make sure that folks feel, again, in a place where they know their rights and know that they can be protected and supported by our community. Again, this session happened in English, but we will do translation in Spanish and Creole as best as possible so that we can share that out. And I think that's about it for tonight, and we hope to see you next week and in other meetings. Thank you again for our special guests. You shared a lot of information that is super helpful, so really appreciate your time. So thanks, everybody. Any other information you want us to share, please, again, just email us or share it on our Facebook and Instagram, and we'll see you soon. Happy Thursday.
Thanks, everyone.
Good night, everyone. Thank you. Thank you once again for having us.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Good night, everyone.